When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
Hey, where you been? Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I am Stephen Means. I am solo. It is a rants pod to kick off what is officially the start of the postseason for Ohio State. They have a first college football playoff opponent. They will play Miami in the Cotton Bowl in the quarterfinal of the playoffs. The winner will move on to the Fiesta Bowl to face Georgia or Ole Miss, who are playing in the Sugar Bowl. Miami got there by beating Texas A&M 10-3 at Texas A&M, setting up what will be the fifth ever matchup between Ohio State and Miami. It's a 2-10 matchup. Ohio State got there by going 12-0 in the regular season and then losing to Indiana in the Big Ten Championship 13-10. I think Miami is the lowest seed left in the bracket. In fact, they are the first double-digit seed to win a college football playoff game. Yeah, because last year all the home teams won. So this is the lowest seed since we went to the 12-team format last year to win a college football playoff game, because they do so as the number 10 seed beating the number 7 seeded Texas A&M Aggies. And obviously Miami is the only ACC team left in the field, the only ACC team that made the field, even though they did not win the ACC. They didn't even play in the ACC championship game, and that's because of a bunch of weird tiebreakers that the ACC had that resulted in SMU and Duke somehow being the teams who played in Charlotte for the ACC, and Duke beat SMU, which is, I don't know, that's a bunch of weird stuff. The point of the matter is Ohio State and Miami playing each other. This will be the fifth official game between these two teams. Both of these teams have split the last four meetings. There was a fifth meeting in there as well. Ohio State won in 2010, but of course Tattoo-Gate happened, and so that win has since been vacated. So the actual games that these two have played against each other include their first ever meeting in 1977. Ohio State won that meeting at home 10-0. They didn't play again until 1999. They played in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and the Hurricanes won that one 23-14 as part of the Kickoff Classic. In fact, that's the last time Ohio State did not win its season opener, and I remember that because I had mentioned that a couple of times when we were preparing for Ohio State to play Texas in the season opening game this year. They have not lost a season opener since the turn of the millennia. And then, of course, they meet in the biggest of the matchups so far, the 2003 Fiesta Bowl, as part of the BCS National Championship game to close out the 2002 season. They win 31-24 in double overtime. One of the big plays, obviously, Maurice Claret, the strip, after the Craig Quinzel interception. I was like 7 years old when that game happened. Actually, I might have been younger than that when that game happened. I don't remember. And that was Ohio State's first national title in over 30 years, while also preventing Miami from repeating as national champions. And it's funny to see where we are now. Miami hasn't won a national title in over 20 years, and they have a chance to prevent Ohio State from repeating as national champions. So it's kind of fun there. And then obviously there was the home and home series in 2010 and 2011. both teams won their home games, but Miami's still counts up today, and Ohio State's does not, which is why the series is tied at 2-2. Some other fun facts before we get into the rants for the day. Not a lot of rants. I wanted to keep it short because we're going to have some pretty long pods over the next couple of weeks here, obviously, as we break down things and we talk about the college football playoffs. So I don't want you guys to feel like every single pod feels like it's a Marvel movie. It's okay. I think we're trying to remind ourselves it's okay for us to go less than 40 minutes sometimes. We've already recorded our breakdowns, offense versus defense, defense versus offense. Those will be out Thursday and Friday, just because we got some other stuff early on in the week. So those will be Christmas and the day after Christmas pods. A couple other things, though. This is actually going to be the second time Ryan Day and Mario Cristobal, who's the head coach at Miami, have ever matched up against each other. If you remember, in 2021, Mario Cristobal came to Columbus as the head coach of Oregon, and what was his final year as the Ducks head coach, and won 35-28, despite C.J. Stroud throwing for 484 yards and 3 touchdowns. And obviously, a lot of what happened in that game is what's gotten us to where we are here today with Matt Patricia and where this defense is. Think about where this defense was the last time Ohio State faced Mario Cristobal, where it's Kerry Combs getting fooled by the same play over and over again. It was a bunch of young guys who didn't know what they were doing. The secondary was horrid. The defensive line they could get pressure, but they couldn't get home, right? The linebackers were fine, right? I mean, Preston Shaw was your starting free safety because Josh Proctor got hurt. He broke his leg in that game. Like, think about how far we've come from that. And now Mario Cristobal is going to play against Ohio State again, and it's Caleb Downs at safety. It's Jalen McClain. It's Davison Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews at corner. You know, the defensive line. I mean, you got the Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year in Caden McDonald, the linebacker of the year in Arvell Reese, and the defensive back of the year and defensive player of the year in Caleb Downs, plus a bunch of other stuff. Like, the crazy thing is the offensive identity is still sort of the same in terms of the description. It's a first-year starting quarterback who's a highly rated guy and a Heisman Trophy finalist, some awesome receivers, and a freshman running back, but the defense is just in a much better spot. And I'm like talking and realizing this in real time, how crazy that is. I think I'm formulating a real-time story idea. So check the site, cleveland.com/OSU, to read that type of stuff. This is going to be the second ever ACC team that Ryan Day has ever faced as a head coach. Obviously, he's 1-1 against Clemson, with a win in the Sugar Bowl in 2020 and a loss in the Fiesta Bowl in 2019. And I think that's all like the fun facts I have for you as we get into some rants. I asked this question literally right after Marcel Reed threw an interception in the back of the end zone that as the Aggies tried to tie the game that essentially sealed the win for Miami. For these rants, probably not the best time for me to ask for that, because I think the texts are 614-350-3315. You guys are so excited that they weren't really formulating thoughts. They were more just, it was fun. You could tell you guys were in real time, like, oh yeah, we're ready. Let's face Miami. So I did pull out a couple of them. I just wanted to start us off with something light before we got into that. So I put them into these categories. As you know, this is how I like to do stuff, just because it's best for me to compartmentalize these things if I can put things in the hats. And so I have 4 hats. I've got the CFP format. It's just some initial reactions to Miami and finding out that that's who you're playing. I got a category called What If, and I'm sure you guys can probably put 2 and 2 together what that is. And just some just like confidence in the Bucks heading into their first playoff game of the 2025 season. So first, let's take a break. I know that was a quick break, but we got to get the ad reads in. So I'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll get into some rants here on Buckeye Talk.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Finish your fantasy lineup?
No, but I'm joining this paid group chat with insider info.
Dude, seriously? Forward it to me. Security alert from McAfee. That group's as legit as that knockoff jersey you're wearing.
McAfee's scam detector is available in all McAfee plans for as little as $39.99 for your first year. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means, and this is a rant pod. Get the text 350-3315 if you want to participate in the rants, participate in surveys, get news, get analysis, get everything straight to your phone. You don't have to go looking for it. You don't got to go scroll Twitter or Google it or ESPN or anything else. We're going to bring everything that you possibly could need as an Ohio State fan straight to your phone, to you at all times. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99. After that, first rant. We're going to start with the CFP format stuff because I just think it's been an interesting conversation with the format this year. We had the format last year. People complained about it. They changed some things, and we had it this year, and we're 4 games in, and we're still complaining already. From the 2-1-0, who would have predicted that Oregon would blow out James Madison? From the 8-4-5, will this James Madison game change the committee's approach? Because this is a joke. And from the 2-1-0, after 2 terrible football games, I'm convinced that we don't need more than 6 teams in the playoffs. 4 was not enough, but I do not see a world where anyone lower than 6 wins the national title. And yes, Ohio State was 8 last year, but Boise State and Arizona State really weren't above them. So let's start with the James Madison point. James Madison ends up losing that game 51-34. So, I mean, they put some points up on Oregon, and I don't know, man. I guess you can say Oregon was up by so much that they had backups and stuff, but they didn't. Like, Jonte Moore played the entire game. They had their starters out there, and they gave up 34 points to James Madison. And I guess that's not a conversation about, could James Madison have made something shake if they had got something started earlier there? It's more about, hey, Oregon's got to play Texas Tech, and if they win, they're going to play either Indiana or Alabama. So, like, I don't know. That's Oregon's defense might be something to keep an eye on there. But between Tulane and Texas and James Madison, Tulane losing to Ole Miss 41-10, and James Madison, as I said earlier, losing 51-34 to Oregon, both road games. I guess the benefit for starters is 11 and 12 seeds getting blown out by 5 and 6 seeds. I don't know. I don't know if there's a tournament out there where that's not the expectation of, like, the lowest possible seed is getting blown out. And to the point of, like, last year with Ohio State being 8 and winning it. I mean, the crazy thing about Ohio State is they would have been 8 even if we just straight seeded it, just simply because of how their season worked out. So there's not a world where, like, Ohio State would have been 5 like Oregon is this year when they didn't play in the Big Ten championship game because they lost 2 games. Oregon has only lost 1 game. Listen, I think for starters, the reason the G5 got 2 teams in it this year isn't because there were 2 G5 teams who were good enough to get in. It's because the other 4 conferences didn't do enough to keep them out. I mean, the SEC, as much as I like to poke at the SEC this day and age, they did their job. They got 5 in it this year. Should they have gotten 5? That's a different conversation, right? Should Alabama have actually made the playoff over Notre Dame? I don't know, probably not, but they're in, and they ended up winning a football game on the road. So, like, you got to give them kudos for that. Notre Dame maybe should have gotten in, but okay, you lost 2 early games, and you were always trying to climb an uphill battle. And when it comes down to a situation where, especially after Texas A&M loses, and you and Miami have the same record, if it was going to come down to you or them, it was always going to be the team that beat you. And the fact that the committee waited until the last rankings to acknowledge that is a flaw in the system, not necessarily in that James Madison and Tulane, who both lost 1 game this season and won their conferences, they did their job. They were conference champs. They didn't lose bad games. And so they put themselves in a position to maximize their chances of getting into the college football playoff. You know who didn't do that? Michigan, USC, anybody in the ACC not named Miami. Now, granted, if you want to make a case that, hey, BYU, they lost twice to the team who ended up as the number 3 seed, I could hear that case that maybe BYU should have gotten in. We should have gotten a second Big 12 team instead of a second G5 team. But, I mean, this is how the cookie crumbles. I don't know what it looks like to exclude the G5 and it not lead to lawsuits. So if people want to eat that, then I think we can have a conversation about the G5 no longer being included, and maybe they start doing their own thing. But the G5 doesn't seem to want to do that on their own, and no one seems to want to take this to court. And it becomes a thing where, is it really worth all that? Is it worth going to court? Is it worth, getting the Eagles involved and all that stuff? Probably not. It probably is not that big of a deal, especially since, I don't know. I don't know if it hurt anybody. Because there's not a sport on the planet where every single game of a postseason is competitive. We had a bunch of blowouts last year, and it wasn't just the G5 team who got blown out. Tennessee got blown out. SMU got blown out. This is what it happens, right? Teams are going to get blown out. I mean, to be frank about it, I think there might only be one close game in the quarterfinal. And that will be Texas Tech and Oregon. And that would make sense. The 4-5 game is competitive. Just like in the first round, the 8-9 game is competitive, even though Alabama, that was weird. That was a weird first half. And shame on you, Oklahoma, for blowing a 17-point lead at home in your first ever playoff game. Shame on you for that. That was pathetic. You got to be better than that, man. But I don't think we'll see two G5 teams get in again. I think that is the immediate fix I think happens next year, is that whether it's Boise State or Tulane or whoever James Madison or Tulane's next head coaches are, or maybe Ohio. Well, no, because they just fired their head coach too for off the field stuff. Whoever the G5 team is next year, if there's multiple, I think only the best of that bunch is going to get in. And then the other 11 spots will be Power 4 spots. Now, I don't think Notre Dame should just get in. They shouldn't just automatically be one of the 12. They should have to earn it like everybody else does. But I don't know if there's a fix beyond that that's not creating a legal situation that, on top of all the other things we're dealing with right now, I'm not sure anybody wants to deal with that. And listen, we might get to the offseason. I might be way off on this, right? These are just my thoughts on the matter, is that it's one spot. They're probably going to be the 12 seed. And, that'll be that. So unless people want to go to court, or people who are, G5, look at things and start going, I don't know if this is worth it when we could just have our own thing. I think this is just going to be what it is. We're also going to go to 16 really soon here at some point, which is unfortunate. I would love to see a decade of this just to see how it looks and how things churn out, because that was the thing about the 4 team, is that we had a decade worth of sample size of hey man, there are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams who probably could be competing and they're not getting an opportunity. I am not 100% sold that there are going to be 16, because if you go to 16, that means there's anywhere from 13 to 18 teams a year who you think can win a national title. I do not think right now, living in this 12-team world, that there are anywhere from 10 to 15 teams that I think get hot and win a national title. Even in the field right now, we're down to 8 already, and I would say Ohio State, Georgia, Indiana, and then whoever wins the Texas Tech Oregon game are the only teams that I realistically think can pull this off. So the top 5 teams in the country. Do I think that, with the transfer portal being as crazy as it is, I think this is going to be a really crazy portal window. It was a crazy coaching carousel. It's probably going to equally be a crazy portal window. I don't think last year's portal window was all that good, and you're seeing it with how many of those guys, whether you're looking at Ohio State or, if you look at Oregon's roster, they went and got Isaiah World from Nevada, and he was the best tackle in the portal, and that hasn't really panned out great. He's fine, but he's not amazing, right? And it's on down how many of the portal guys from this class really panned out, because even Max Clare has been quality here, but I was rewatching the spring game the other day, and Jake Butt, who I have a lot of respect for, I think he's great. I don't think Jake Butt's on TV enough, but he was throwing around the Mackey Award with his name, and that's a dude who won the Mackey Award, so he knows what he's talking about. And that's just not the type of year that Max Clare had. C.J. Donaldson has been fine, but it's I don't know. In hindsight, you probably did need to go get C.J. Donaldson because you got Bo Jackson and Isaiah West here, right? So, and that's not just Ohio State. This is the bubble I live in, so those are always going to be the first references I have. But there's a lot of transfers out there who have not necessarily lived up to the billing. I think there's maybe just going to be a little bit more star power in the portal this time around. So, I don't know, with the portal and NIL and rev share and, the expansion of conferences, do we see more teams get involved simply because the gap closes a little bit between the best program in the country and the worst program in the country? Do we see more Indianas pop up? Do we see more Texas Techs pop up, right? Does Lane Kiffin get something shaken at LSU? Is Texas A&M for real now? Is Miami officially back now? Regardless of what happens in the Cotton Bowl for them, are they officially back? I think all those things are going to play a role into if we let this simmer for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Let's see, because I do feel like sometimes nature will tell you whether or not you need to do something or not. And nature told us we needed to expand the playoff beyond 4. I am not going to say for certain that the nature is going to tell us that we need to expand this beyond 12, but money and all those other things. So those are my thoughts on the CFP. I don't think we're going to see more than one G5 team ever get in again, and it's just I don't know. 2 good games and 2 blowouts. And the 2 blowouts were the games that everybody thought were going to be a blowout, and the 2, not even just based on the names of the teams, but the seeds. If you just looked at seeds, you would say that the 7-10 and the 6, you would say that the 7-10 and the 8-9 game should be competitive, and that the 6-11 and the 5-12 game should be blowouts. And that's what we got. And in this next round, you should say that the 4-5 and the 3-6 games should be competitive, and maybe the 1-9 and 2-10 games should be blowouts. And if that's what happens, it's okay, then this is just going the way you expect it to go. The teams who are closer together in seeding play 4-quarter games, and the further you are from that, the easier the competition is. I think that's how it should be. Oregon and Ole Miss should have had easier games as the 5-6 seeds than Texas A&M and Oklahoma had as the 7 and 8 seeds, and that's how we saw it play out. So no more than one G5 team, though, because that was tough. That was a tough watch because it's just you saw it with the Tulane game, really, because I thought Tulane did some good stuff. I thought John Schumerall did some good stuff in that Tulane Ole Miss game. It's just you have to be perfect. If you get a turnover, it has to turn into 7 points. If you get to the red zone, you have to turn this. You don't have any margin for error because you have to get to the fourth quarter. And Tulane, once they didn't take advantage of something, they didn't take advantage of, I think, their second to last drive of the first half when they didn't get points out of it and they left enough time on the clock for Ole Miss to go drive. You can't do that type of stuff because you had an opportunity to, as Ryan, the middle eight, all coaches talk about it now. Tulane had a chance to win the middle eight and go into that game, that second half with some real momentum, and they just kind of killed it. And then after you kill that opportunity, eventually the depth of talent is going to take over for one team or the next. You have to do something to put yourself in a position to survive that, and Tulane did not do that. And then with James Madison, you can't come out flat. And especially against Oregon, because Dan Lanning, of all the coaches, is definitely the one who is going to take this opportunity to score 51 points on the G5's game. He's the only one. In fact, I think he's the only one of this bunch who would have come into that game with a let's run it up mentality, for better or for worse. And you almost have to respect it because he does that with every game. If I have a chance to run it up, I'm going to run it up. If I have a chance to shove it in your face, I'm going to shove it in your face. And you love it when it works in your favor, just like it's pros and cons to everything. When it's going your way, you love it and it's entertaining. And when it's not going your way, you're like, man, maybe you shouldn't do things that way. But you let Oregon come out from the get-go and just jump on you, and you were never going to be able to survive that. But, yeah, one G5 team going forward. We don't need to see more of these. We need to see one of these a year is fine for now, I guess, until we go to 16 and we get AQs and all that stuff. 2 of those is just, you don't want to lose people, especially since the first 2 games, the Friday night game and then the afternoon game, were just such bangers. They were bad football games, but they were entertaining football games. To close out what was an entertaining weekend with that was tough, especially when the NFL is, Caleb Williams is doing what he's doing in the NFL. It's like, oh, I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to go turn on this instead. Which is unfortunate, but that is what it is. Let's move on to initial reactions to Miami. I got 2. From the 614, why was the game so low scoring, and do you anticipate our game being low scoring also? And then from the 614, was Texas A&M's defense that good, or was Miami's offense that bad? I think what you saw on Saturday from Texas A&M and Miami, and this is not going to be the only pod I bring this up, both of those offenses are atrocious. Both of those defenses are elite, and as a result, you get a game where whoever scored a touchdown was going to win the game, especially on a day when the wind is just killing any chances of making field goals. That's just what you were going to get in a game like this. Do I think Ohio State's game might play out like this? If it does, something has gone wrong with Ohio State's offense. So Ohio State has failed to score at least 20 points in a football game, I want to say 4 times since Ryan Day became the head coach. I think that number is right. Yeah. At Notre Dame, when they scored a game-winning touchdown at the end of the game with Chip Trayanum to win that game 17-14. At the end of the season, when they played Missouri and they lost that game 14-3, that's the only time they scored less than 10 in a football game. And in both of those instances, like Notre Dame was a good football team, and also like I don't know, Kyle McCord was like not great in that football game, and also that's also a credit to Notre Dame. The Missouri game, I mean, Kyle McCord's in the transfer portal, Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the sideline in street clothes. Devin Brown's your starting quarterback. He gets hurt in the first half, and now you're playing with a third-string quarterback who showed up in June. That's just kind of what it is, right? I don't even think I'm not sure a lot of fans even count that in Day's resume, given what happened and how that game went. And then you've got last year, the Ohio State-Michigan game. So that's 3. Yeah, that's 3. They lose that game 13-10, and that's because of that's the first one where it just felt like coaching malpractice. And then this year, they beat Texas 14-7 to close out the year. That's 4, if my math is right. I'm not great at math. And that was, we scored a touchdown early. We threw a 40-yard bomb to Carnell. He caught it. We were at 14-0. I think that 14-0 might win this game. It's number 1 versus number 3, and we've got a brand new starting quarterback. We don't want to put him in harm's way, and we think 14 points is enough to win the game. So fine, whatever. And then obviously the Indiana game. The Indiana game, and when they lose 13-10, that game and the Notre Dame game are the same to me in terms of that's just 2 good teams who played a defensive level game. So I'll let it be that. The Michigan game is malpractice, and the Texas game that's just what we chose to do. And then the Missouri game's like, I don't know what you want from us, man. It's Lincoln Keenholz has been here for 6 months, and this is not at all. He wasn't supposed to play any snaps this year, let alone snaps in a bowl game against an SEC school. That's just not how that was supposed to go. I think if they score less than 20 points against Miami, it's going to have a lot to do in common with that Michigan loss where it's coaching malpractice. Because Texas A&M's offense is not great. Miami's offense is not great, and their defenses are elite, and so only 1 touchdown was scored. Miami's offense is not great. Its defense might be elite. Ohio State's defense is elite, but Ohio State's offense has an elite ceiling. Miami's offense doesn't have an elite ceiling. So if Ohio State comes out here against this team that doesn't have Indiana's offense, so because of that, it might have ample opportunities to score in a way that they were not going to get against Indiana, because Indiana could sustain some drives. I think Ohio State can get some 3-and-outs against Miami, and you only come up with 10 points, 13 points, 17 points. That doesn't make you feel good about where Ohio State's offense is in comparison to what you think it could be. So do I think it's on the table that Ohio State only scores 10 or 13 points? Yeah, if things go wrong, because this is not like Texas. Oh, Julian Sand's new to this. We are not going to do more with him than we have to. Julian Sand has played 13 games as a starter and he finished 4th in the Heisman Trophy voting, where he could have won the award had they beaten Indiana. That excuse doesn't fly anymore of we're just not going to ask Julian to do something. He's at the point in his career where he should start heading towards the category of we're going to start asking you to do stuff to actually win us football games. Like, you need to be the driving force. And I think he's ready to do it. They just got to let him do it. So I actually don't think if Ohio State wins, it's because they won the game 13-7 or 10-6 or something like that. I think if they win this game, I think they opened as a 10.5 favorite and they went down to 9.5 because I think that always happens. I think they're going to win this game by multiple scores right now. And this is Monday as you're listening to this. It's Sunday evening as I'm recording it. I've got essentially a week and a half to sit with that and make sure that's actually what I think it's going to be. But right now, as we open up the week, I think Ohio State's going to win this game by 2 scores. And it's simply because Ohio State has the ability to be an elite offense and an explosive offense. And Miami doesn't have that gear. And so as a result, they might just be asking their defense to do something more times than it should be asking its defense to do something. And at some point, that dam is going to break. Let's take another break, and then we got a couple more rants here on Buckeye Talk.
The Who's Down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
And we're back here on Buckeye Talk. Stephen Means and the Texers were ranting as Ohio State is officially underway with the preparation for Miami in the Cotton Bowl. Get the text 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. From the 704, will be interesting to see the matchup with several recruits OSU lost to Miami. Mark Fletcher, especially. Fletcher has a chance to hurt the Buckeyes defense. And then from the 330, playing against multiple players who were committed to Ohio State and Miami threw a bag at them. Culture beats money. Go Bucks. Okay, so I actually went and looked. And there are 4 memorable recruitments from the 2023 class and 2024 class, between those 2 classes. In terms of guys where you can legitimately say they should have been Buckeyes. Not just because Ohio State recruited them. They actually won the recruitment at one point, and they were all committed to Ohio State. Now, granted, I think both sides can say this in a matchup like this. There are some Ohio State Buckeyes that Miami fans think should be Miami Hurricanes, right? Jeremiah Smith's from Miami Gardens. Brandon Ennis is from Hollywood, Florida. Kenyatta Jackson is from South Florida. Him and JJ obviously went to the same high school, Chaminade, Madonna. Brandon Ennis went to American Heritage. Cardinal Tate's from Chicago, Illinois, but he went to school down there, and he was like well infiltrated in with the South Florida Express 707 team. So that's a thing as well. It's just, both sides have people where it's like, man, you should be on this team. What happened? And that starts with the 2023 class. The only one in the 23 class is Mark Fletcher. He was a 4-star recruit. Same high school as Brandon Ennis, by the way, American Heritage. He was number 149 player, number 8 running back in the country. He committed to Ohio State on April 12th, 2002. And that was 11 days after he was in Columbus for an unofficial visit to see spring practice. And later that summer, he took an official visit to June. So he was committed. He committed in April. He decommitted in November on the 16th. And then on signing day, or like a few days before, he commits to Miami and ends up signing with Miami. And in the year since then, he's now in his 3rd year here. And obviously he made a lot of big plays in that Texas A&M game. But he's been a contributor at Miami now for 3 years. He's got 375 carries for 1,978 yards and 24 touchdowns, plus 31 catches for 275 and a score over the last 3 years. Next up on that list is Marquise Lightfoot. He's the only one of this bunch who I don't think ever actually committed to Ohio State. But I do remember he had gotten offered in January of 2023. He took an official visit in that June. And there was like a lot of buzz that he was going to end up being a Buckeye at some point. Like I think he was like a silent commit or something like that. He ended up being the number 31 player, number 4 edge in the 2024 class out of Chicago, Illinois. And again, he had a lot of buzz to Ohio State. And then whatever happened between that official visit and July 3rd when he actually committed, I don't know what happened between that time behind the scenes and whatnot, but he ends up committing to Miami as a 5-star recruit, signs there to play for Jason Taylor. And then over the last 2 years now, he only played 5 snaps as a true freshman, but now he's played 245 snaps this year as a rotational player, where he, as an edge rusher, has recorded 20 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, a pass breakup, and he has 24 pressures on the season. The other two decommits were 2024 guys as well. You had Justin Scott, number 10 player, number 3 defensive lineman in that class. He also is from Chicago. He's from St. Ignatius. And a funny story, I wasn't there, but I guess Gillis and Nathan, when he used to work, they went to go see Justin Scott play at the time when he was still a Buckeye, because he had been committed to Ohio State for a long, long time. And then as we got close to signing day, he ends up flipping to Miami. He committed to Ohio State on July 2nd, 2023, decommits from Ohio State on November 29th, 2023, and then he commits to Miami on November 29th. That same day he flips to Miami. And this one was so funny because he was the guy, when they put out his graphic, there was a big pile of money in the graphic, and it was like, oh, this is the world we live in now. We're like, NIL, we're not even like hiding it anymore. It's like, yeah, money definitely played a role in why he ended up flipping. But Justin Scott, he's been another valuable player for Miami over the last 2 years. As a true freshman, he played 113 snaps. This year, he's played 371 snaps on the interior of their defensive line. And over the last 2 years, he has recorded 28 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, a forced fumble, and 12 pressures as an interior guy. I think he spends a lot of his time playing at 3 tech. And then last but not least was Jordan Lyle, who made it back-to-back years that Ohio State lost a running back from South Florida who they got in early and ended up flipping to Miami. And it became this thing of like, hey, how about we stop taking Miami kids so early if they're just going to flip? He committed to Ohio State in April. In fact, I think he committed the day of the 2023 spring game that year, and then takes his official visit. And then he started taking a bunch of visits to Miami throughout the year, throughout the fall, and ends up decommitting from Ohio State on December 18th and signing with Miami on December 20th. He did that as the number 133 player and a number 11 running back in the country. He's played 200 snaps the last 2 seasons as a backup running back, 89 carries for 508 yards and 5 touchdowns. In fact, he played in all 12 games as a true freshman and only played in 6 games this year. So he's kind of taking a backseat role this year. I'm not completely sure what's happened this year with him. But I think the only one of these guys that they've significantly missed might be Justin Scott, just basically because, like, listen, you can never have too many defensive tackles. Like, imagine if your defensive tackle rotation was Justin Scott, Caden McDonald, Tywan Malone, Edric Houston, and Will Smith Jr. Like, I don't know, would we have been having conversations that we had in the offseason about where the defensive tackle depth was if you just had Justin Scott here as a second-year 5-star and you had just moved Edric Houston into the interior as well? I think you'd be having a different conversation there. And especially going into next year, when I don't think Caden McDonald is coming back and Tywan Malone is graduating. It's like, okay, it's fine. Edric Houston and Justin Scott are going to be your starters next year. You'd be perfectly fine. I understand the Mark Fletcher point, but sometimes true freshmen can fix that problem. I think pre-Bo turning into Bo Jackson, like before Bo got here, I could have understood that. But the moment Bo got here, and like Carlos Loughlin even back in the spring is telling us like, yo, Bo Jackson's special, I think that filled the void of not getting Mark Fletcher, not getting Jordan Lyle. Mark Fletcher's a heck of a running back. I'm not taking that away from him, but it's just, I don't know. Mark Fletcher has been a quality running back. Bo Jackson's a 1,000-yard back in year 1, and he didn't play in the first game of the season. So I think it ended up being fine. They ended up with Bo Jackson as their guy. Maybe you'd have Bo and Mark kind of sharing things, but it sounds like Isaiah West is going to be that this year. But especially this year, it just seems like Bo Jackson is just going to get the ball 20 times a game for the next 3 games if they win a national title. And then next year, you're going to start again with Bo Jackson, Isaiah West, and we'll see what James Peoples decides to do. And they might have to go get a portal guy. But I think it's fine. It's another one of those situations where it's like in the moment, I feel like those were such a big deal. And I'm not devaluing what they were, but I think Ohio State ended up figuring it out. And I think it's fine. they got a kid from their backyard who looks like he's going to be a 3-year starter here. I think it'll be okay. Let's close out with some confidence in the Bucs stuff. From the 419, this rant is about to be all over the place. Miami is about to get BTA'd, and that's spelled to you-know-what, by their owners. Miami's offense looks bad. I know the win was a factor, but they couldn't score a touchdown until the end of the game. OSU has a good run defense. Break the U again. From the 502, there's only one reason I can think of that Ohio State doesn't come in and win this game. Brian Hartline, good recruiter and coach, but I think as we reflect on the year, the team has won in spite of his play calling. He needs and deserves to be there, but he needs to fold his arms, kick his feet up, and watch Day drive the bus. As you already stated many times, it is time to get the ball to JJ and Carnell and trust Sand. This is just me marking it down. We haven't talked to anybody yet. The way this is going, you got to do what's necessary and what's best for your team. And it's just been so interesting watching Brian Hartline. Because it's so Kerry Combs coded. And I've been saying this since the spring. I don't know how many times I said it in the microphone, but I'd said it to people where it's like, we've just decided that the offense is too good to fail and that Brian Hartline is going to be good at this because he's a good recruiter and he's a good developer of talent, as if Ryan Day didn't do this exact same thing on the other side of the ball 4 years ago with Kerry Combs, as this beloved Ohio native who was a Buckeye through and through and was awesome at recruiting and awesome at positional development, but had never shown he could call plays. And we just expected that to be good too. And by the second game of his second year as a coordinator, he's being stripped of his duties. I don't think it's gotten that bad with Brian Hartline, because if he hadn't have taken the South Florida job, I'm not sure we would be pounding the table for, hey, Ryan Day, you need to call plays for the rest of the season. But it's been interesting to watch. Like, Kerry Combs wasn't as beloved by the time he left here after the 2021 season. And, I mean, obviously, the matters have been made worse because he decided to take a job at Michigan as a special teams coordinator. And, of course, Michigan drops that news just as the ball's getting kicked off for a Big Ten championship game, which in itself is a bit – I'm not going to go on a Michigan tangent right now, but you let that man hire somebody just to fire him 4 days later for an investigation you had been deep diving into for a month? Come on, man. We got what is that? You let him hire a staffer. You let Sharon Moore hire a staffer when you were in the midst of investigating him for unacceptable conduct in the workplace. It's just like, you gotta, come on, man. But anyway, the Brian Hartline point, year one wasn't as smooth as maybe we thought it was going to be, but I did see room for him to grow. I thought he had a very good Michigan game. I thought he had a great Penn State game. It just was so up and down in a way of like, hey, man, this might take some time for Brian Hartline to get there, and now he's headed out the door, and it's just crazy because we're like not that far removed from like, yo, we got to do everything we can to make sure Brian Hartline doesn't leave here and that he loves being here and he never wants to leave. And now it's a reminder that everybody has a time limit, right? No one ever wants to overstay their welcome. And I think the moment Ryan Day handed him the keys to the offense, we were always on a ticking timetable of either he's going to get to the point where we're like pleading with this dude to never leave Columbus, or people are going to be like, yeah, we're ready for something new. And that's what we've gotten here with Brian Hartline, simply because he took over as play caller. But I agree. I think my own take on this is that Ryan Day is going to be calling plays for the next 3 weeks. And he should. This is the perfect – if he's going to do it, this is the perfect window to do it in, because – there's not recruiting never stops, but it's not like signing days behind you. The season is over. You're getting 10 days to prepare for teams now. I know the portal is about to open in like 12 days, but that's people are in place to handle that and to handle that the right way, right? I think like I don't think the portal is not as much of a headache as signing day, I think, is, because things move so much faster, and like Mark Pantoni knows what he's doing. He's very good at this. So this is if this is the only time, December really, in the back half of December and the first part of January are the only time in the college football calendar where it's strictly about college football at all times. And so this is the time when like Ryan Day, the OC, Ryan Day, the offensive genius, gets to come out and play. And I think he should lean completely into that with Julian Sand and this offense. It doesn't mean that, this goes so well that now Ryan Day's calling plays again when they take the field next year. No, it just means that for this 3-game window potentially where because of circumstance, your offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach is also trying to build the foundation for his first program as a head coach. This is where Ryan Day should step in because that's his job as a head coach, is to step in when the time calls for it. He's literally a head coach is supposed to be a closer, and that's not just on the recruiting trail. Now that's on the football field too, and it's time to close. You want to close the season with a trophy, or want to close the season watching somebody else raise the trophy? The choice is yours. If you want to close it with a trophy, call the plays. If you don't, not saying that you won't win it if Ryan Hartline calls plays. I just like their chances of winning a national title with Ryan Day calling plays right now significantly higher than I did with Brian Hartline. So go ahead and take that play sheet, Ryan, and dust off the old play calling voice. It's time to pick up the controller again. It's time to play real life Madden. It's awesome that he gets to do that. From the 614, in the wake of the Indiana loss, my concern is with Julian Sand and the Buckeyes offensive line. Sand and the O-line often looked confused against the Hoosiers, and Sand was sacked 5 times. Do you think the Miami defense could present similar problems, especially the Canes defensive ends? And what can OSU do to combat that? Also, while I think OSU is the most talented team on the field, they have to play at that level if they expect to win another natty. You have to do more than just show up. The 2024 Buckeyes were also the most talented, but they won a natty because they brought their A game in the postseason, at least against Tennessee, Oregon, and the Rose Bowl in the first 3.5 quarters against Notre Dame. I agree. I'm concerned about the offensive line because Miami's defensive line is better than Ohio State's offensive line. They just have more just like raw and sheer talent. But, so did Texas, and Colin Simmons didn't even have a pressure. So did Penn State, and Julian Sand was comfortable back there. So this is not the first elite defensive line they're going to play, and Indiana wasn't either. I think Indiana has a very good defensive scheme. It's not just the defensive line. It's the defensive tackles were very good. The linebackers were great, and they threw some stuff at Ohio State they'd never seen before. The benefit is now that they've seen it, I think, if these offensive coaches are as smart as I think they are, they're going to adapt to that and go, okay, we had never seen that before, and now we've seen it, and we know how to make the proper adjustments to it. Which is why you're going to hear me say this a lot this week. It can't just be run the ball, play action, deep shot, 40 yards down the field to J.J. Carnell. They've got to be versatile with how they try to get those guys the ball. Julian Sand showed us against Penn State. He's got a little wiggle back there when he needs to make something happen. It's just you can't ask him to do that every single play. There's no quarterback you can ask to do that every play. You can't even ask Lamar Jackson to do that every play, and Lamar Jackson is awesome. Tegra Chabot is not going to be starting right guard. He's not healthy, and I'm pretty sure he's done for the year. But even if he wasn't, I can tell you that there was no way that they were going to throw Tegra Chabot back out there. But that only helps but so much because there's a reason why he's been the starter the last 2 years because no one's been able to officially take the job from him. So has Gabe Van Sickle taken a step over the last 30 days? Is Josh Padilla healthy enough to do what maybe he could have done during the UCLA and Rutgers games where maybe he had an opportunity to take the job away from Tegra, but he got hurt against Penn State? Maybe, but we got to see that first. But I think Julian Sand's been sacked 11 times this year, and Indiana is responsible for 5 of those 11. So I'll take the field in terms of what the body of work has told us about Ohio State's ability to protect Julian Sand and pass pro versus Indiana and what they were able to do, because I do not think Miami can replicate that because their defensive line is amazing. I think their linebackers are okay. And also, I think Indiana's secondary is better than Ohio State's faced against Indiana. I think Indiana's secondary is better than Miami's, but also Miami are going to get a much healthier version of Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate than Indiana did. So I take those things all into consideration, plus maybe a change in the way they approach things offensively. And I don't think if Miami thinks they're going to sack Julian Sand 5 times simply because Indiana did it, I think that's the wrong way to approach this. Just like if Miami thinks they're not going to sack Julian Sand because Texas didn't, I don't think that's the right approach. It's somewhere in the middle. But if Miami only gets to Julian Sand twice, I don't think that's a successful day for Miami. That's just ball. Indiana got to him 5 times. That's why it made a difference. And I don't think Miami can do quite that because Julian Sand is a fast processor. We'll close with this one. From Peter in Northwest New Jersey. Hey, Steven, my rant for the Ohio State-Miami game is Jackson and Curry having a field day on Miami's offensive line with at least 4 sacks combined, along with McDonald having at least 1 sack. Caleb Downs intercepts Beck twice. I can't wait to see what Patricia comes up with for the Miami game. Also, I really feel like JJ, Sand, and Tate are going to unload on Miami, getting snubbed on the national awards, especially with the unanimous All-American. For JJ wasn't a unanimous All-American, by the way, but I feel like they want to say F you to the national awards voters. I really feel like they've been saving an extra great game for the playoffs, and the rest with their season injuries will drastically help them to be even better against Miami. I feel like Bo Jackson is in for a big game, especially if the offensive line decides to play like they are capable of. I think it would be a lot of fun to stick it to Miami in a blowout, winning by 2 or more touchdowns and holding Miami to 10 or less points. All the defense has to do is not allow a TD, and they may keep them to 6 or less points because their kicker is horrible. I think Miami's kicker should get drafted by the Giants because they have horrible kickers, and it's hilarious. Looking forward to all the analysis and breakdowns of Miami and Ohio State for this upcoming game. Also, when is the next Ryan Day press conference and player interviews? Today, as you're listening to this, actually. We are headed to the Woody. If you're listening to this at like 9 o'clock in the morning, if you're listening to this at 6, I'm probably still asleep. I'm just going to be real with you. I get up at 7:30. I'm not getting up any earlier than 7:30. It's just not. I'm not a morning person. I'm not a big morning person at all. So when we do like the spring stuff and we got to be at the Woody at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm not always in the best moods. But it's ball, so I love it anyway. But today, we're talking with Ryan Day and offensive players today around 11, and then later this evening we'll be talking with Matt Patricia and defensive players. We're at that point in the year where typically you'll get the offensive coordinator and a couple of players, and then the defensive coordinator and a couple of players. So I do think it is quite interesting that we're getting Patricia for the defense, but we're not getting the actual offensive coordinator for the offense. We're getting Ryan Day. I think that's just intriguing, seriously, because like, Brian Hartline is back in Columbus right now. Like he was in Miami not Miami, but Tampa for most of last week. That was last week. Ohio State starting practice this week. He's going to be up here. So the fact that we're not talking with him and we're talking to the head coach and not, because the thing is, the schedule is we're talking with players at 10 and then we're talking with Ryan Day at 11. So we're not getting the coordinator with the offensive guys. We were going to talk to the head coach regardless. It was going to be coordinators and players, head coach, and then coordinator and players. So the fact that the coordinator is not included with the offense makes that 11 o'clock presser with Ryan Day that much more interesting. Because, listen, we overthink for a living. It's part of our jobs. And so everything is either something, nothing, or it's everything. And I think it's something that Ryan Day is talking and Brian Hartline isn't in terms of who might be calling the plays on December 31st. And again, we got 11 days till that has to happen. So, well, not 11, more like 9 days till that has to happen. So get your text 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. And also, Peter, I vote in a lot of national awards, so I hope they're not sticking it to me. I voted for Jeremiah Smith to win the Biletnikoff Award, by the way. So don't blame me for why he didn't win the award. I also vote in a bunch of all Big Ten, and I voted on the Big Ten awards, and every Buckeye who won an award, I voted for them. I didn't vote Julian for quarterback because, Fernando happened. But everywhere else, I voted for an Ohio State player that it made sense. So that's wide receiver, and then the 4 defensive player awards, the DB, LB, DL, and defensive player. I voted for Buckeye. So, listen, I did my part. I was honest and voted for JJ where it was time to vote for JJ because I have eyes and I've watched college football and I see how one guy gets covered and how everybody else gets covered. And yet that one guy still had 1,000 yards. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Fun week of interviews. It's going to be a busy Monday. as we're talking to a bunch of different people. We're going to have breakdowns for the first college football playoff game for Ohio State of the 2025 season. And later this week, we'll be at some practices and we'll be giving you some info off of there. So it's a great time. It's a great time to get the text if you don't have them. It's 2 weeks for free. That gets you through literally all the prep and the lead up to the Cotton Bowl, plus the actual Cotton Bowl game for free. Everything you possibly could need in your life as an Ohio State football fan, coming straight to your phone. Just text 614-350-3315. I sound like the guy who's always like, it's a new car, except it's a new text. From 614-350-3315. Okay, that was fun. Shorter than normal. We'll do a longer Rants pod at some point. But I just wanted to start the week off light with something to get your guys' voices out there and how you feel about some things. I know I'm just kind of rambling now. It happens. I'm sorry. I'm getting better at hosting. I think I'm getting better at hosting. This is my third year in this seat, and I think I'm getting better, but I'm not perfect. I know I can talk too much when this mic turns on. I know who I am.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. Mm-hmm. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.